Unforeseen Heir finds redemption through unexpected journey. Episode 1 Unveiling the Past. Ghost of Dev Kapoor. The day began like any other in the modest Gill household. Nandini Gill, now Mrs. Rezada, was busy tending to her daily chores, her thoughts miles away from the grandeur her name suggested. The marriage to Prime Minister Arjun Rezada had brought her little more than a change of surname. There was no lavish lifestyle, no extravagant gifts, just a simple man she barely knew. Her family had always viewed Arjun with contempt, branding him as a good-for-nothing who had somehow managed to land himself in the role of Prime Minister through sheer luck rather than merit. Arjun, on the other hand, was a man of few words, his presence in the house quiet but steady. He seemed content to let Nandini's family think of him as a nobody. He never boasted of his achievements, nor did he flaunt his position. To Nandini, he was an enigma, a man she had married but never truly known. But this day was destined to shatter the calm facade of their lives. The morning post brought with it a letter, marked with the prestigious seal of the Rezada family. Arjun's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the emblem. He had spent years distancing himself from this legacy, a past he had never wanted to embrace. Yet, here it was, confronting him at his doorstep. Opening the letter, Arjun's eyes scanned the contents rapidly. The news was as stunning as it was surreal. His estranged father, whom he had never met, had passed away. But that wasn't all. Arjun had been named the official heir to the Rezada Industrial Group, one of the most powerful business empires in the country. The words on the page felt heavy with the weight of expectation and change. Nandini, sensing the tension in the air, approached Arjun cautiously. "What is it?" she asked, concern lacing her voice. Arjun looked up, his expression unreadable. "Everything is about to change, Nandini," he said softly, handing her the letter. As she read, her eyes widened in disbelief. This was the man she had married. The man her family had dismissed as a pauper. In that moment, Arjun realized the magnitude of what lay ahead. Not only had his life changed irrevocably, but this also offered him a chance, an opportunity to finally gain Nandini's respect, and perhaps, her love. It was also the moment he decided that the Gill family, who had treated him with such disdain, would learn the truth about the man they had scorned. As the episode closes, Arjun stands resolute, staring out of the window. The life he had known was gone, replaced by a future filled with both promise and challenge. The unexpected heir had a new mission: redemption, love, and a reckoning that would turn the world on its head. The sun was barely up when the first wave of phone calls started coming in. News of Arjun Rezada's unexpected inheritance had spread like wildfire, making headlines in every major newspaper. The once quiet Rezada household was now the epicenter of curiosity and speculation, with reporters camped outside their modest home, eager to catch a glimpse of the new heir to one of the country's largest business empires. Nandini stood in the living room, phone in hand, as she read the headlines aloud. "Prime Minister Rezada, the unseen billionaire," she recited, her voice tinged with disbelief. She glanced over at Arjun, who was calmly sipping his morning tea, seemingly unaffected by the storm that had erupted around them. "How can you be so calm?" she asked, her frustration barely contained. "Everything's changed overnight. People are going to treat us differently now, and my family, they'll never believe it." Arjun set his cup down and met her gaze. "I've spent my entire life trying to stay out of the limelight, Nandini. This wasn't something I wanted, but now that it's here, we have to face it head on. I'm not doing this just for me, I'm doing it for us." Nandini looked away, the weight of his words sinking in. Theirs had never been a marriage of love, but there was a sincerity in Arjun's eyes that she couldn't ignore. For the first time, she saw him not just as the quiet, unassuming man she had married, but as someone who had carried a burden far greater than she'd imagined. The day unfolded in a blur of activity. Lawyers and business advisors streamed in and out of the house, each one bringing a new piece of the puzzle that was the Rezada Industrial Group. Nandini found herself overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the empire Arjun was now set to inherit. Factories, real estate, global investments. The Rezada fortune was vast, its reach extending into every corner of the economy. But amidst the chaos, there was one meeting that Arjun had insisted on handling personally. As the evening approached, he invited Nandini to join him in a small study at the back of the house. Inside, waiting for them, was Mr. Kapoor, the family's long-serving lawyer. Mr. Kapoor, Arjun began, I want to know everything. No more secrets. If I'm going to take on this responsibility, I need to understand exactly what my father left behind, and why he chose me. Mr. Kapoor nodded solemnly. Your father, Mr. Rezada, always intended for you to inherit his empire. He wanted you to be strong, independent, qualities he saw in you even from a distance. When he realized his time was running out, he made sure to amend his will to reflect his wishes. You are the rightful heir, Arjun, and this company is yours to lead. Nandini listened in silence, trying to process the enormity of what was happening. As Mr. Kapoor continued, outlining the various aspects of the business, she noticed Arjun's expression change. What had begun as a reluctant acceptance of his new role was now transforming into something else, a resolve, a determination to rise to the occasion. The meeting ended with a final piece of advice from Mr. Kapoor. The Rezada name carries weight, Arjun, but it also carries expectations. Your father was a complex man, and his legacy is both a blessing and a challenge. How you choose to navigate it will define your future, and the future of this family. As Mr. Kapoor left, Nandini turned to Arjun, a mix of emotions swirling within her. So, what happens now? Arjun smiled, a hint of confidence in his demeanor that she hadn't seen before. Now, we start building a life worthy of the Rezada name. But first, he added, his tone hardening, we're going to pay a visit to your family. They need to understand who I really am, and what this marriage means. Nandini felt a shiver run down her spine. The man standing before her was no longer just Arjun, her quiet husband. He was Arjun Rezada, the unexpected heir, ready to claim his place in the world. And as they prepared to face the Gills, Nandini realized that this was only the beginning of their journey together. The Gill family's home was nestled in an affluent neighborhood, a place where appearances meant everything. Nandini had spent much of her life here, surrounded by people who valued status above all else. Her family had always prided themselves on their social standing, and the fact that she had married a pauper had been a constant source of embarrassment for them. Little did they know, the man they had scorned was now one of the most powerful individuals in the country. As Arjun and Nandini approached the Gill residence, Nandini could feel her nerves tightening. She had avoided confronting her family about their treatment of Arjun for years, but now everything was about to come to light. She glanced at Arjun, who walked beside her with a calm, determined stride. There was an air of quiet confidence about him that she found both reassuring and unsettling. They were greeted at the door by Nandini's elder brother, Raj, whose disdain for Arjun had always been thinly veiled. What brings you here, Arjun? Raj asked, his tone condescending. Come to ask for another loan. Or perhaps you've finally realized you're not good enough for our Nandini. Arjun met Raj's gaze steadily. Actually, Raj, I'm here to share some news with the family. Is everyone home? Raj smirked, clearly enjoying the perceived power dynamic. They're in the living room. But I'm not sure what kind of news someone like you could possibly have that would interest us. Nandini's heart pounded in her chest as they entered the room where her parents, younger sister, and a few extended family members were gathered. The atmosphere was casual, but the tension was palpable as they noticed Arjun's presence. Her mother, Mrs. Gill, was the first to speak, her voice dripping with disdain. "What are you doing here, Arjun? We thought you'd be too busy playing house with our daughter to bother with us." Arjun remained composed, but there was a steely resolve in his voice as he replied, "I'm here because it's time you all learned the truth about who I am and what this marriage really means." The room fell silent, the family exchanging puzzled glances. Mr. Gill, Nandini's father, leaned back in his chair, a skeptical eyebrow raised. "And what truth might that be?" Arjun pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket and handed it to Mr. Gill. "This is my father's will. I am Arjun Razada, the rightful heir to the Razada Industrial Group." The room erupted into stunned silence. Mrs. Gill gasped, while Raj snatched the document from his father's hands, scanning the contents with growing disbelief. The family's reactions ranged from shock to outright disbelief, their expressions a mix of confusion and realization. Raj was the first to break the silence, his voice shaky. This can't be real. You're saying you're the heir to the Razada fortune. How is that possible?" Arjun's gaze swept across the room, taking in each family member's stunned face. "I never wanted to use my family's name to prove my worth. I chose to build my life on my own terms, but now the truth is out. I am the heir, and with that comes a responsibility I intend to honor." Mrs. Gill looked at Nandini, her eyes wide with confusion and a hint of fear. "Nandini, why didn't you tell us? Why did you keep this from us?" Nandini, still processing the gravity of the situation herself, took a deep breath. "Because I didn't know the full extent of it either. I married Arjun for who he is, not for what he has. But now, everything has changed." Mr. Gill finally spoke, his voice quieter, almost humbled. "Arjun, we didn't know. We judged you unfairly, and for that, I apologize." Arjun nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to make it clear that Nandini and I are partners in this, and from now on, our marriage will be treated with the respect it deserves." The room was thick with tension, the Gills grappling with the reality of Arjun's revelation. For so long, they had looked down on him, but now, the power dynamics had shifted dramatically. As the episode drew to a close, Arjun turned to Nandini, taking her hand in his. "We're in this together, Nandini. No more secrets, no more hiding. It's time we step into the life that's been waiting for us." Nandini squeezed his hand, feeling a newfound sense of unity between them. For the first time, she saw a future where they could truly be equals, standing side by side against the world. As they left the Gill residence, leaving behind a family stunned into silence, Nandini couldn't help but feel that this was the beginning of something much bigger. Arjun was no longer just her husband, he was a man on a mission, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The early morning sun bathed the city in a golden hue as Arjun and Nandini made their way to the Razada Industrial Group's headquarters. This was the day that Arjun would officially assume his role as the heir, stepping into a world he had kept at arm's length for so long. The looming skyscraper, with its sleek glass exterior and the iconic Razada logo, symbolized everything Arjun had once rejected but now needed to embrace. Nandini walked beside him, her own emotions a mix of pride and anxiety. The events at her family's home the previous day had left her reeling, but Arjun's unwavering resolve had given her strength. She knew that this was a pivotal moment, not just for Arjun, but for their marriage as well. Together, they would be stepping into a new chapter of their lives, one filled with both opportunity and uncertainty. As they entered the building, the staff greeted them with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Word had spread quickly about Arjun's newfound status, and the employees were eager to see the man who would now lead the company. Arjun maintained his calm demeanor, acknowledging the greetings with a nod but keeping his focus on the task ahead. They were escorted to the top floor, where the executive board awaited them in a spacious conference room. The air was thick with anticipation as the board members, seasoned veterans of the corporate world, sized up their new leader. Some of them had known Arjun's father personally and had been surprised by his decision to pass the empire to a son he had kept hidden from the public eye. Mr. Mehta, the chairman of the board and one of Arjun's father's closest confidants, stood to greet them. He was an imposing figure, his sharp eyes scrutinizing Arjun as he extended a hand. "Welcome, Mr. Rezada. We've been expecting you." Arjun shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, Mr. Mehta. I'm here to learn, and I'm ready to take on the responsibility that's been entrusted to me." The meeting began with a detailed briefing on the company's current state, its assets, ongoing projects, and future prospects. Arjun listened intently, absorbing the information with a level of focus that impressed the board members. He asked thoughtful questions, demonstrating that while he might be new to the business world, he was no stranger to leadership. Nandini sat quietly by his side, observing the dynamics in the room. She could see the skepticism in some of the board members' eyes, but she also noticed the respect Arjun was gradually earning as the meeting progressed. His calm confidence and willingness to learn were slowly winning him over. As the meeting neared its conclusion, Mr. Mehta leaned forward, his expression serious. "Arjun, your father built this empire with a vision and a passion that few could match. He was a man of great ambition, but also of great integrity. The legacy he left behind is now yours to shape. What are your plans for the future of the Rezada Industrial Group?" Arjun took a moment to consider his response. "My father's vision was built on innovation, perseverance, and a deep understanding of the market. I intend to honor that legacy by continuing to grow this company, but I also want to bring in a new perspective, one that focuses on sustainability, social responsibility, and creating value not just for shareholders, but for society as a whole." The room fell silent as the board members processed his words. Mr. Mehta nodded approvingly. "That's a noble vision, Arjun. It won't be easy, but with the right team and the right strategy, I believe it's possible. You have our support." With the formalities concluded, the board members began to leave, each offering words of encouragement or advice as they passed. Nandini could sense the shift in their attitudes. Where there had once been doubt, there was now a tentative acceptance. As the room emptied, Mr. Mehta lingered behind, approaching Arjun with a more personal tone. "Your father would be proud, Arjun. He always believed you had the potential to lead, even if he never said it aloud. Don't be afraid to lean on those who knew him well. We're here to help you succeed." Arjun nodded, a mix of gratitude and determination in his eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Mehta. I appreciate your guidance." As they left the building, Arjun and Nandini stepped into the bright afternoon sun, the weight of the morning's events settling on their shoulders. Nandini turned to Arjun, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "You were incredible in there. I could see them starting to respect you." Arjun smiled, a rare moment of vulnerability crossing his face. "I wasn't sure how they'd react, but I knew I had to be honest about my intentions. This isn't just about me, it's about us, about building something meaningful together." Nandini squeezed his hand, a sense of unity and purpose filling her. "We'll do it together, Arjun. Whatever challenges come our way, we'll face them as a team." As they drove away from the Rezada headquarters, a new chapter of their lives began to unfold. The unexpected heir was no longer just a title, it was a responsibility, a mission to redeem not only a legacy but also to build a future that they could both be proud of. And with Nandini by his side, Arjun knew he had everything he needed to succeed. A week had passed since Arjun had assumed his role as the heir to the Razada Industrial Group. The whirlwind of meetings, decisions, and new responsibilities had kept him occupied, but the transition was smoother than he had anticipated. The board members, who had initially been skeptical, were gradually warming up to his leadership style. Arjun's vision of modernizing the company while upholding his father's legacy was gaining traction. But as he began to settle into his new role, a sense of unease started to creep in. The closer he got to the heart of the business, the more he realized there were layers of secrets and unfinished business left behind by his father. The Razada Empire was vast, but it also had a past filled with complexities that Arjun was just beginning to uncover. One evening, as Arjun sat in his home office poring over company documents, he found an old, leather-bound journal tucked away in a box of his father's personal effects. The journal's pages were filled with handwritten notes, business strategies, and personal reflections. As he flipped through the pages, Arjun stumbled upon a section that was different from the rest, more personal, more cryptic. The entries spoke of a partnership his father had once had with a man named Dev Kapoor. The name was unfamiliar to Arjun, but the tone of the entries suggested that this partnership had been crucial to the early success of the Razada Empire. However, something had gone wrong. The last few entries mentioned a falling out between his father and Dev, followed by a note in the margins, "Unfinished business Kapoor." Arjun's brow furrowed as he read the words. His father had been a man of principle, known for his business acumen and integrity. What could have caused such a rift between him and this Dev Kapoor? And what was the unfinished business his father had left behind? The mystery gnawed at Arjun. He knew he couldn't ignore it. If there were unresolved issues from the past, they could threaten the future he was trying to build. But he also knew that delving into his father's past could uncover things he wasn't prepared to face. The next day, Arjun decided to visit Mr. Mehta at his office. If anyone knew the truth about Dev Kapoor and the nature of his relationship with Arjun's father, it would be Mr. Mehta, who had been his father's closest confidant. When Arjun arrived, Mr. Mehta greeted him warmly, though he quickly noticed the seriousness in Arjun's demeanor. "What brings you here today, Arjun?" Mr. Mehta asked, gesturing for him to sit. Arjun placed the journal on Mr. Mehta's desk, open to the entries about Dev Kapoor. "I found this among my father's things. I need to know who Dev Kapoor is and what happened between him and my father." Mr. Mehta's expression darkened slightly as he looked at the journal. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Dev Kapoor. I should have known this would come up eventually." Arjun leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What happened? Why did they fall out?" Mr. Mehta took a moment to gather his thoughts before speaking. "Your father and Dev Kapoor were once very close. They started out together, building the foundation of what would become the Razada Industrial Group. Dev was brilliant, but he was also ambitious, too ambitious. As the company grew, so did the tension between them. Dev wanted to take risks that your father wasn't comfortable with. He was willing to compromise on ethics to achieve faster growth. Your father, however, refused to let the company's integrity be tarnished." Arjun listened intently, absorbing every word. "Their partnership eventually fell apart," Mr. Mehta continued. "Dev left the company, and they went their separate ways. But there was one deal, one last business venture that your father never got to finish. It was meant to be a joint venture with Dev, but after their falling out, it was left in limbo. Your father always intended to resolve it, but as the years went by, it became a shadow hanging over him, a loose end he never managed to tie up." What happened to Dev Kapoor after that? Arjun asked. Mr. Mehta sighed again. Dev disappeared from the business world, at least publicly. Some say he went abroad, others that he started his own ventures in the shadows. But one thing's for sure, he didn't forget the Razadars. There were rumors that he held a grudge, that he wanted to prove himself better than your father. But nothing ever came of it, at least not while your father was alive. Arjun's mind raced with possibilities. If Dev Kapoor was still out there, could he pose a threat to the company? Could this unfinished business be something that would come back to haunt the Razadar name? Do you think he could still be a danger to the company? Arjun asked. Mr. Mehta's eyes narrowed slightly. It's hard to say, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that unresolved matters have a way of resurfacing when you least expect them. If Dev is still out there, you need to be prepared. Arjun nodded, the weight of his father's past settling heavily on his shoulders. He knew that he couldn't ignore this. If Dev Kapoor was still a threat, he needed to find out and deal with it before it jeopardized everything he and Nandini were working towards. As he left Mr. Mehta's office, Arjun's thoughts were consumed by the mystery of Dev Kapoor. The unexpected heir was about to uncover the shadows of his father's past, and in doing so, he would face challenges that would test his resolve like never before. Back at home, as Arjun shared what he had learned with Nandini, she could see the determination in his eyes. This was no longer just about stepping into his father's shoes, it was about confronting the past, protecting their future, and ensuring that the legacy they were building was free from the ghosts that had haunted it for so long. As they closed, Arjun resolved to dig deeper into Dev Kapoor's whereabouts and the nature of the unfinished business. The road ahead was uncertain, but Arjun knew one thing for sure: he would not allow the shadows of the past to dictate the future of the Razadar Empire. The battle for redemption was far from over, and Arjun was ready to face whatever came next. Arjun's nights were becoming restless. The discovery of Dev Kapoor's existence had stirred something deep within him, a mixture of curiosity, fear, and a sense of responsibility. Every time he closed his eyes, he envisioned the man who had once been his father's closest ally but was now shrouded in mystery. The unfinished business between his father and Dev felt like a ticking time bomb, one that could explode and unravel everything he had worked to secure. Determined to uncover the truth, Arjun enlisted the help of a private investigator, someone discreet who could dig into Dev Kapoor's past without drawing too much attention. Days turned into weeks as the investigator followed leads, searching through old records, tracking down former associates, and piecing together the puzzle of Dev's life after he left the Razadar Empire. During this time, Arjun continued to fulfill his duties at Razadar Industrial Group, working closely with Nandini to navigate the challenges of their new life. They were becoming a formidable team, their bond growing stronger as they faced each obstacle together. But the shadow of Dev Kapoor loomed large, a constant reminder that their journey was far from over. One evening, as Arjun was going over some paperwork in his office, the phone rang. It was the investigator. Mr. Razadar, I've found something, the voice on the other end said, tinged with urgency. Dev Kapoor has been living under a different name for the past several years. He's been involved in a series of ventures overseas, but what's more interesting is his recent activity. He's back in the country, and I believe he's been watching your every move. Arjun's grip tightened on the phone. Watching me? Why? It seems he's been waiting for this moment, for you to step into your father's shoes. I've found evidence that he's been trying to undermine some of the company's smaller projects. Nothing major yet, but enough to suggest that he's testing the waters, seeing how much influence he can exert without being noticed. Arjun felt a cold chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about old business deals or a falling out. Dev Kapoor was still very much a threat, and he was actively working against them. Where is he now? Arjun asked, his voice steady despite the tension he felt. He's staying in a secluded estate on the outskirts of the city. It's heavily guarded, which makes sense considering his past. But if you want to confront him, now might be the time. He's operating alone, or so it seems. Arjun thanked the investigator and hung up the phone, his mind racing. He knew what he had to do, but it wasn't a decision he could make lightly. Confronting Dev Kapoor could either resolve the situation or escalate it to dangerous levels. Later that night, as Arjun and Nandini sat together in their living room, he shared what the investigator had found. Nandini listened quietly, her face a mix of concern and resolve. "This isn't just about your father anymore, is it?" she said softly. "Dev Kapoor is trying to destroy everything we're building." Arjun nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "I have to face him, Nandini. If I don't, he'll keep coming at us, chipping away at the company until there's nothing left. But I don't know what he wants. Is it revenge? Or is it something more?" Nandini reached out, taking his hand in hers. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. But you need to be careful, Arjun. Dev Kapoor sounds dangerous, and we can't underestimate him." The next morning, Arjun made up his mind. He would go to Dev Kapoor's estate and confront the man who had been haunting his family's legacy. He knew it was risky, but it was a risk he had to take. Arjun arrived at the secluded estate later that afternoon, driving up the long, winding road that led to the entrance. The place was imposing, surrounded by tall walls and guarded by security. As he approached the gate, a guard stepped forward, eyeing him warily. "I'm here to see Dev Kapoor," Arjun said, his voice firm. The guard hesitated, then spoke into a radio. A moment later, the gate slowly creaked open, and Arjun drove through, his heart pounding with anticipation. He was led to a large, dimly lit study where Dev Kapoor was waiting. The man who greeted him was not what Arjun had expected. Dev was older now, with graying hair and a weary look in his eyes, but there was still an air of sharpness about him, a calculating presence that set Arjun on edge. "Arjun Razada," Dev said with a slight smile, his voice smooth. "I've been expecting you." Arjun stood his ground, refusing to be intimidated. "I'm here to find out what you want, Dev. Why are you trying to destroy the company? Why now, after all these years?" Dev motioned for Arjun to sit, but he remained standing. "You're very much like your father, Arjun. Stubborn, determined, unwilling to back down. But you're also naive if you think this is about business." Arjun frowned, his patience wearing thin. "Then what is it about?" "Revenge." Dev chuckled, a hollow sound that echoed in the room. "Revenge? No, Arjun. This is about what was taken from me. Your father and I had a dream, a vision for what we could achieve together. But he betrayed that dream, betrayed me, and left me with nothing. Everything he built after I was gone was on the foundation of my work, my ideas. And now, I want what's mine." Arjun's eyes narrowed. "You can't rewrite history, Dev. My father made his choices, and you made yours. You walked away." Dev's smile faded, replaced by a cold, steely gaze. "I didn't walk away, Arjun. I was forced out. Your father didn't just reject my ideas, he destroyed my reputation, made sure I could never rebuild what I'd lost. I've spent years in the shadows, planning my return, waiting for the right moment. And now, with you at the helm, it's the perfect time to take back what should have been mine." Arjun felt a surge of anger. "You think you can just take over? That I'll let you tear down everything my father and I have built?" Dev leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You have a choice, Arjun. We can either continue this game of cat and mouse, where I keep chipping away at your empire until there's nothing left, or we can settle this like men. I want my share of the Razada fortune, the share that should have been mine from the beginning." Arjun clenched his fists, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had come here for answers, but now he was faced with an ultimatum. Give in to Dev's demands, or risk an all-out war that could destroy everything. But Arjun wasn't about to back down. He knew he had to protect his family's legacy, even if it meant facing a man like Dev Kapoor head-on. "You're not getting a single piece of my father's empire, Dev," Arjun said, his voice firm. "If you want to fight, then so be it. But I won't let you win." Dev's eyes flashed with anger, but there was also a hint of respect in his gaze. "Very well, Arjun. But remember, you've just made a powerful enemy. And I always get what I want." As Arjun left the estate, his mind was racing with the events that had just unfolded. He had stood his ground, but he knew the battle was far from over. Dev Kapoor was a dangerous man, and this confrontation was just the beginning. Back at home, as Arjun shared the details of the meeting with Nandini, they both knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But they were ready. Together, they would face whatever Dev Kapoor threw their way, determined to protect their family and the legacy they were building. As the camera panned out from the Razada estate, where Arjun and Nandini stood united against the storm that was about to come, the unexpected